What are white lies? Are they just small lies or they have bigger impact in our relationships? In this episode, we are going to talk about what white lies actually are, why people tell them, how people justify them, and why small lies are often much more emotionally complicated than they appear. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tabling Thoughts podcast. My name is Solmaz Bergir, and I'm a psychotherapist, relationship coach, author, and podcast host. And I'm based in Toronto. Tabling Thoughts is a podcast recorded and published on a monthly basis where we explore relationship dynamics, emotional patterns, self-growth, mental wellness, and the many challenges people experience in their personal and relational lives. You're listening to 44th episode of Tabling Thoughts podcast, and in this episode, we are going to talk about our struggles with white lies. Have you ever been in a relationship where something technically felt small, but emotionally felt much bigger? Maybe your partner hid something minor. Maybe they said they forgot to mention something. Maybe they lied to avoid conflict. Maybe they told you, I didn't want to hurt you. And suddenly you found yourself wondering, if this one was small, why did it hurt so much? Today's episode is about white lies in relationships. The lies we normalize, the lies we excuse, the lies we sometimes even call kindness. So let's dive into it. What is a white lie? A white lie is usually described as a harmless lie told to avoid conflict, protect feelings, reduce tension, or maintain harmony. Unlike major deception, white lies are socially acceptable. Sometimes they even sound polite, such as, I'm almost there, but they're not. I'm fine, but they are not. I loved it, but they didn't. No, nothing bothered me, but something did. I forgot to tell you, but maybe they didn't. And in relationships, I didn't mention it because it wasn't important, but it was. I knew you would get upset, but maybe you wouldn't. I didn't mean anything, but they did. I was trying to protect you, but that wasn't the intention. The problem is people usually judge lies based on intention, but relationships experience lies based on impact, and those are not always the same thing. Someone can genuinely believe they are protecting the relationship while slowly damaging trust. Let's see why people tell white lies. Most white lies are connected to fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing someone, fear of emotional consequences. Some people learned very early in life that honesty was unsafe. Maybe they grew up with emotionally reactive parents. Maybe telling the truth caused punishment. Maybe keeping peace became a survival mechanism. So later in adulthood, they avoid difficult honesty automatically. Not necessarily because they are manipulative, but because discomfort feels threatening. Other people tell white lies because they want to control perception. They want to appear kinder, more loyal, more emotionally available, and more responsible. And sometimes people lie because they cannot fully face the truth themselves. This is where emotional immaturity becomes important, because emotional maturity is not only telling the truth to others, but also it is the ability to tolerate honesty within yourself. I didn't want to hurt you. This is one of the most common justifications for white lies. And sometimes it's true, but sometimes what people really mean is, I didn't want conflict. I didn't want guilt. I didn't want consequences. And I didn't want discomfort. That changes everything. Avoiding discomfort is not always the same as protecting someone. In fact, delayed honesty often creates deeper pain. Now the person feels hurt twice. First by the situation, then by the realization that honesty was missing. And once trust cracks, the brain starts questioning everything. What else wasn't true? What else was hidden? Can I emotionally relax around this person? This is why even small lies can create large emotional reactions. The pain is not always about the lie itself, my friend. It is about what the lie represents. Maybe the most complicated thing about white lies is that many of them are not told with bad intentions. Sometimes they come from fear, sometimes they come from avoidance, sometimes from emotional immaturity, and sometimes from not knowing how to tolerate difficult conversations. But understanding why someone lies does not automatically erase the emotional impact, because relationships are not built only through love. They are built through emotional safety, through consistency, through honesty, and through the feeling that reality around you is stable. Okay, my friends, in part 2, we are going to go much deeper into the psychological impact of white lies, how repeated dishonesty affects trust and the nervous system, the difference between privacy and secrecy, and how social media changes emotional transparency in relationship. And last, whether trust can truly be rebuilt after repeated small lies. Because sometimes relationships are not destroyed by one massive betrayal. Sometimes they slowly weaken through repeated emotional inconsistency. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tabling Thoughts podcast. I would really appreciate if you support the podcast by like and comment and subscribing it and sharing it with those who may benefit from listening to it. And I will see you in part 2.